Hello, welcome back to a new video in the Java for Beginners series. In this video, we're going to cover methods or functions. Let's get started. So we're going to look at methods and functions in a very limited way. And the reason why is because they're very heavily dependent on having an understanding of how object-oriented programming works. So if you're a beginner and you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, it's okay. The very next videos, we're going to talk about and explain object-oriented programming and give plenty of examples. So functions are a block of functionality that you can pass optionally, but you can pass input to it, and it can optionally return an output to you. Let's see how that works in practice. So we've seen print statements like the following one. All right, just printing hello world. I'm going to change that slightly. I'm going to say, for instance, say hello to, and I'm going to concatenate that to my name, Haz. And if I hit run, I get say hello to Haz. Maybe I should have a space here. Perfect. What if I want to say hello to somebody else? I'm going to have to copy this, paste it, and then say here maybe Sarah. Now I can say hello to Haz and say hello to Sarah. Is there a better way of doing this? The answer is yes, and we can utilize functions. Now hear me out, I'm only going to use public static functions for this video. In future videos, we're going to use a lot more types of functions, but just for now, not to complicate things, we're going to stick to public static. Doesn't matter what that means for now. So I'm going to type public static, and I'll type in void, and we'll explain what that means in a bit. And I'm going to name my function greet, and I am going to have those parentheses and curly brackets open and close. And then I'm going to maybe copy or cut and paste here those two statements, and well, if I just do that and I hit run, nothing is being executed. So I'm going to have to invoke the function. So I'm going to have to type in greet, sort of like when you do print line. Do you see that? That is an invocation of a function called print line. It's public void print line, right? Okay, so greet, the name of the function, and then parentheses and a semicolon. If I hit run, I see that the stuff within the function have been executed. Now, what if I changed my mind and I just want to greet, get rid of the greet Haz and keep greet Sarah? I can do that. I can take out that line and do that. Do you remember how we said we can pass input to it optionally? You can pass input that you define here in this area. So between the parentheses, I'm going to define a string. Notice here, S is uppercase, string name, and then I'm going to take that name and put it here. And now I'm getting an error here, expected 1 argument but found 0. So I need to pass an argument, and in that location I'm going to type in Sarah as a string, and if I hit run, I get say hello to Sarah, or I guess hello to Sarah, or just hello Sarah. That makes more sense. Right, I could also now greet myself and see how that works. Perfect. I can even greet somebody else 10 times. So I'm going to for int I equals 0. I is less than 10, I plus plus. And I'm going to execute greet and I'm going to pass here Edward. If I hit run, I get hello Sarah, hello Haz, and hello Edward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times. So this is how you pass input to the function through the parameters. And this could be any of the types that we have seen. So we've seen all the primitive types and we've seen string. I could show you one other example. So I'm gonna define my function, public static void square, and this time I'm going to pass an integer number, and within that I'm going to, I don't know, find that what the square of the number is. So int square equals number by number. I'm gonna get rid of those and maybe get rid of this and keep just the square, and I'm gonna call the square and pass to it, I don't know, 5. So the square of 5 is 25. If I hit run, well, nothing really happens. I guess I could take the square and print it here, but that wouldn't be such a great practice, right? Because this is supposed to be finding out what the square is, but it's not supposed to be printing it. Otherwise, you'd call it square, find out square and print it. But is there a better way of doing this? And the answer is yes. A better way of doing it is to replace the void here with a data type, one of the ones that we've seen, that the function is going to return, in which case the appropriate one would be an integer or a long. So I'm going to stick with an integer for now, and I'm going to return, use a keyword called return, square. And once I do that, I'll hit run. Well, nothing really happens, but I could take that invocation and pass it to well, I can store it in a number. So square equals, and then print that number. If I hit run, I get 25 computed here, passed back to the invoker here, and then stored in square, and then printed. Can I make this with less code? Can I just like optimize a little bit? The answer is yes. Note that we're creating square and using it immediately. Is there a point of creating that square variable if we're just going to return it right away? The answer is no. We can cut this and paste it here, and then get rid of that line and hit execute, and we get the same answer. Also, it seems like square is only being used here. So I can just simply take that invocation and place it directly within the parentheses of the print line statement. And if I hit run, I also get the same result. So back to this diagram, the function here is square. The input is the number that you pass to it, and the output is the square of that number. So if I told you, without really revealing the implementation of square, and I said to you, I have a function called square. You pass to it a number, and it returns the square of that number. Would you really have to know any of the fine implementations of the function to know what to expect? And the answer is no. You could just look at the input and then the output, and then if it's named properly, maybe if it has a bit of documentation, well, this is a very simple function that has one line, but as functions get complicated and have many lines and do many things, then you're not going to have to read every function that you use. You can just look at the name, the description, the inputs, and the outputs, and be able to use the function as a black box. And I want you to know that black box mindset from the get-go. So when you're designing your functions, you want to pay attention to what you name it, pay attention to the input and the output. And that would make it easy for somebody who's going to use your code to figure out what the function does even before reading any lines within that function. I'm going to show you one more example here. So say that you want to have like an add calculator. I'll paste this function here. So I have an add function that takes in an integer and another integer. So it takes two integers. So note now I can pass multiple values to a function if I comma separate the values. Data type, name, comma, data type, name. And note that these variables, just like number, become local variables within the function. So they become values that you can use, you can change, you can read the value of, etc. So I have this add function, and it has a print statement, and it's saying sum is, and it's adding one and A and B. Let's see how that going to work out. I'm gonna repeat what I did here again, and I'm gonna add 5 and 10. Now notice what's happening. It's saying cannot resolve method println void. What does that mean? Well, it means that this, if you hold down command if you're on Mac, or I think control if you're on Windows or Linux, you see a pop-up showing up with the return value next to square int, which is here. My return value here is void. So it's trying to figure out if there is a function called println that you can pass void to it. and it's saying there isn't. So what actually might be more useful is to just, I guess I can comment this line out and just invoke it the way it is, and it would return void, and it's got a print statement within. So a better name would be print addition, and then I'm gonna have to change that. And if I hit run, I get 15, the sum of 5 and 10. I'm hoping this is becoming easier to follow now. So if a function returns void, you can't use it as an input to the print line function. Okay, let me show you something more useful. I've got a max function, and it takes 2 parameters as input, 2 integers, a and b, and it's got logic inside. So it says if a is greater than b, then I want you to return a, else return b. Now let's call max and give it, I don't know, -2 and 5, right? And I'm gonna print out the result. If I hit run, I'll get 5 printed. Let me copy that function, and I'm going to call it min, but I'm going to now a is less than b. Then I would like you to return a. Otherwise, I want you to return b. And I'm going to call min. Now, if I hit run, I'll get now -2 returned. So there you go. I don't have to know what the implementation inside is to figure out, oh, the min function takes 2 parameters and returns an integer. Okay, so it probably computes which number is the minimum, and the max probably computes which number of the 2 is the maximum. Can a function return more than one value? The answer is no. So you either return void or you return a value. All right, let's return something that is not integer. I got this function here called is even. So just looking at the function is even takes in an integer. So we're saying, is the integer even? And it is returning either true or false. So without really looking at this, I can make an educated guess and say, oh, are you asking me is it if an integer is even or not? So the function will probably find out if it's an even number or not. Oh yeah, look at the implementation. It's got the modulus. So does it divide over 2 with 0 remainder? If that is the case, then it's an even number. Otherwise, it's an odd number. To call that function, I type in print line and is even, and I'm gonna find out if 10 is even. If I hit run, I get true. If I give it 11 and I hit run, I get false. Okay, so here's another function here that is interesting. I'm gonna get rid of this. I got the function print line. Okay, so you pass to it a message and then the number of times that you'd like it to print that message for you. And it'll just loop from 0 to I less than the times, I++, and it's gonna print the message on a new line every single time. So let's test that. Print line, I'm gonna pass to it hello world and maybe print that 10 times. I'll hit run, I get that printed 10 times. If I pass 1000 and I hit run, I get that printed 1000 times. So isn't that handy? Say I wanna do another function called print line. All right, and I'm going to, it's complaining. Saying print line is already defined in main. So if I change the name slightly, it's gonna stop complaining. So it is actually, in fact, complaining that the function is defined twice, and that's a problem. Well, I'm gonna momentarily change the name, and we're gonna get back to that in a bit. I would like this new print line to include the iteration number. So we're starting from 0 here. I'm going to change that to 1 and change that to less than or equals so that we start from 1 and end at the correct number, which is say 10. So from 1 to 10. I'm going to add here iteration and add the I. And if you call print line 1 and hit run, you get the iteration printed with the line. Okay, why am I doing this? Well, it turns out maybe I want to have a boolean that says print iteration as an input. And if you basically pass that as true, then I'm going to print the iteration. If you pass that as false, I'm not going to. So what I can do here is I I can change that to print. And here I can do an F statement and say if print iteration, okay, then I'm going to do, so when you do a print, not print line, everything you print until you give it the new line character or the print line statement will be on the same line. So let me show you. Print, and I'm going to get rid of that plus and cut all of this and paste it here, right? Now we have a problem here that we're expecting 3 arguments, but we found 2 here. So let's add the third. I'm going to say true. I hit run. Ooh, I forgot to add the, so basically everything is being printed on one line, just a line. So at the end of the iteration, I'm going to S out. That should be enough, actually, I think. Yeah. So either do that or print, and then you put in the new line character, and that shall have the same outcome, basically. So this is a control character that is invisible, but it's added to the end of the line and moves the cursor to the new line. But what if you pass here a false and you hit run? Well, you get the line printed without the iteration number. So why is this important, and what am I doing with print line 1 here? It turns out it's going to be upset if print line and print line have the same name and the same parameters. But if you remove that now, well, they're not really colliding anymore. I mean, it's upset because this method doesn't exist anymore, or this function doesn't exist anymore. But if I get rid of the 1 here and then I hit run, it turns out everything's okay. And guess what? If I get rid of that parameter and I hit run, everything is also okay. So what is happening here? What's happening is something called method or function overloading. So you can use the same name for a method, and sometimes that makes sense. But you know, with that method, you can have different types of input configurations. So here I have this input configuration of string message and integer times. Here I'm having this and an extra print iteration. Okay, now I could show you more examples actually. So here I have the add function, and the add function could accept now integers, or could accept doubles, or could accept 3 integers, and it's all fine. So I'm going to actually just keep that one and comment out those 2 just to show you. So add, and I'm going to have 15 and 10, and hit run. All is good until I do this. It's going to complain because it's saying provided double but required type is int. And now if I uncomment this, well, everything's okay. And now this is even expected to be a double, because this is limiting that we cannot use this anymore. So now we're using this version of the function add, which expects 2 doubles. So A is a double and B is a double. And if I hit run, well, I'm not printing out anything. So let me print out and hit run, and we get 25.5. And the same thing goes here. I can have 3 parameters added. So if I add here 10, it's going to be a problem because it's expecting 3 integers, but I've provided integer, and a double. So I'm going to have to make that integer as well and hit run, and I'll get 35. So one more thing I want to show you. These are actually variables. So if in my implementation, I changed the value of A to be, I don't know, 15. And then let me just stick to, actually, let me remove these just to eliminate any confusion. And I'm just stuck with this version of it, 2 integers, but I'm setting A to be 15. And then I'm returning the result. And then say I want to set this to 0. But if I hit run, I'm getting 25. And it's because I'm changing that value here. So changing the value would basically override the original value that came in when you invoke the function, which is 0. So keep that in mind. These can and do change if you actually change them within the implementation of the function. So a common mistake would be to define a function and say it's an add function. All right, I'm gonna say result equals A plus B, and then saying, all right, I'm done, and you hit run and you get missing return statement. So a common mistake for beginners is to actually forget to include a return statement. You need a return statement if your function returns something. If it doesn't return anything, like void, then a return statement becomes a problem. So if you have a return statement for a void function, that's a problem. Unless the return doesn't return anything, it's just return, then that would signal that the function needs to just return over here. Let me show you an example of how that can be useful. I've got this function here that says print positive, and I'm passing number to it. So obviously, if the number is positive, then it gets printed. But what if it's not positive? What if you passed a negative number or a zero number? If you're not counting zero as positive, then you're going to return without printing anything. So let's test that function. Print positive, I'm going to pass 10 and run, and I get positive number 10. Maybe I pass 0 and hit run. Well, nothing really happens because I checked and the number isn't positive. So I decided to just return right here. So I could have designed it in a different way, else, and then skipped that return statement and hit run. It would give the same results. Or even you can have that number, only if number greater than 0, then print, and that could work too. So it's up to you. But know that this implementation is completely valid, and people do use this kind of return prematurely if they decide that you don't need to go all the way till the end of the implementation of this function to actually return. And this brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful. And if you have, give us a thumbs up and take what you learned and practice using functions in Java. In the next videos, we're going to explore object-oriented programming. So I will see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.